Hello, everyone, and welcome to Intrusive Thoughts. I'm your host, Adam Rippon, and currently the time is 12:47 a.m. That's right. It's another midnight episode. Why is it so late? I don't know. You tell me. I have no idea why it is so late. But I want you to know that I have a theory, and I'm going to run it past you. And the theory I have of why is it so late? How did I get here? Why am I recording so late? The reason is that right now we're sort of in the last stages of getting ready for the Olympics in Milan. And when I say we're, I mean me. I am in the last stages of like all the prep that I'm going to do. Okay. And so I have like filmed a lot of things that I need to like do edits on. I have a lot of like research and stuff that I need to do. And it takes all day. It takes all day. I want you to know that I've been like sitting in a chair for like hours on end. It's like I've been sitting in a chair like the amount of time you would if you were in like a transcontinental flight. My hip flexors are locked. I am stuck in the position of like 90 degrees from like torso to thigh. And I haven't moved. You know, I've like walked the dogs. That's like my big exercise of the day. My other big exercise of the day was 1 second before I hit record on my computer. 1 second before I unplugged an external hard drive. Let me give you a little background. My computer, love it to death. I really do have a soft spot for this computer. They don't make this like model of MacBook Air anymore. And there's a good reason, because it is, it's small, right? Like I feel like the like smallest version you can buy now is like maybe an extra inch bigger, which just is like more screen space. So they don't make this anymore. And there's only like 2 USB-C ports. Okay. This is important. I have one like to be charging it because I did sort of work it to the bone today. It died. So I need it to be plugged in. And then the second USB wire is from the microphone that I am recording this episode of Intrusive Thoughts by Adam Rippon. That is me. And so I plugged this microphone into the computer. And, like I said, I have a soft spot for the computer, but I do run into an issue now where it is completely full. Right? There's not like a single gigabyte of space left. I have to delete things to do like these updates that I feel like my computer is asking like, hey, can we do the Tahoe 59.9 update again? I feel like my computer's asking me if we can do updates literally every other day, which, you know, what I'm about to say, it's like, this has nothing to do with like you and me, you, the listener, me, the host. This has everything to do with me and Tim Cook. Okay. And maybe he listens to the podcast. And if he does, this is like a open letter to him of like, hey, Tim, let's kind of get everybody together in Silicon Valley. Let's get your whole team together and let's sort of just do the update right the first time. Okay, let's just do it right the first time. Not like, oh, hey, we're going to do another Tahoe update because the last one had bugs in it. Well, why did you allow that to happen, Tim Cook? Do you think Steve Jobs would be happy with all the bugs that you're letting into like my 10-year-old MacBook Air, a size that doesn't exist anymore, a color that you can't even get anymore? Gold, rose gold, maybe? I don't know. Hard to tell. Maybe it's a bit sun damaged. I'm not sure. Anyway, Tim, I would really like if we could kind of workshop just a one update. How about I'd be good with one update, maybe once every other month. Even once a month feels cumbersome. Okay. Once every other month. Other than that, I just like, let's work the bugs out at home. Okay. Let's work it up in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley before I'm downloading it just a little bit south of that in Los Angeles County. Okay. Let's just get it right the first time. Okay. I'm saying all of this because in order to do updates, as I mentioned, I do need to like delete things off of the computer. Okay. A concept that is foreign to anyone that has a computer, I think, that isn't 10 years old. And so I need to plug in an external hard drive. So I'm mentioning the USB-Cs. And so like I ran into a scary situation where I didn't ask the external hard drive, hey, is it okay if I unplug you? Because you need to do that. Like if you plug things in, you need to like eject them properly, as I was told I hadn't done, which is true, but it is on the border of being dramatic, because I just don't think that if I'm plugging something into my computer, I need to ask it if it's okay to be unplugged. That should be a given. It is not your right to be plugged into my computer. It is a privilege to be plugged into my computer. I don't need to ask you permission to unplug. That being said, I do, right? I do need to ask, because otherwise you'll do it not properly, ejected not properly, or whatever it said. So I did have a scary moment of like unplugging the external hard drive and it going, hey, that was not ejected properly. And it did make me feel like everything on it may have been deleted. I have not plugged it in, and I'm sure it's fine. I just don't really like the fright of that message, the severity of it. It just feels like a little intense for what happened. You know, I needed it out. And again, I just don't think I should have to ask. I mentioned that it is quite late in the night, a midnight episode, if you will. And it's because, like I said, I'm doing a lot of like prep for the Olympics. There's a lot of research to be done. There's a lot of things to go over. There's a lot of things I need to do like within like the NBC like company before I go. I'm making it sound like I'm writing like a database or something. Basically, like there's just like mandatory like workplace things that you need to do. Okay. Like that's basically it. Ooh, I hit my knee on my desk. I'm okay. That is because my hip flexors are, like I said, they're like rock solid hard. I'm going to need like a chisel and a hammer to like break up the ligaments. That's kind of how I feel. I'm going to have to do a figure 4 before bed, or it's locked up, I think, for like a long time. I'm going to be fine. The other day before going to bed, I watched a TikTok, and it was a girl, and she was sobbing, crying, and she was like, I finally figured out how to do pigeon pose, and I released so much trauma within my body. And if you see me record a video similar to that, I want you to know it's because there's trauma being built up, and it's sort of like in the groin area. And I don't want you to take that in any other way aside from my hips are locked. Okay. Not in a sexy way, in like a very physical therapy sort of way. Which if you've ever been to physical therapy, it's like the least sexy place you could like ever go for anything. People are like, oh, my ankle hurts. It's like, there's nothing. Okay. Suck it up. Right. Turn it a few times this way. Put this band on it. Like, going to physical therapy is the least sexy thing somebody can do. Being a physical therapist is like kind of a hot thing, but physical therapy is like the least sexy thing possible, right? Because a lot of times people go in there like, my back is stiff. Okay, move it. Do something. I'm literally like, it's like me screaming into a mirror of like, why can't I bring my chest all the way up anymore? Why am I stuck in a seated position? Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I'm also like editing a lot of like content that I've like collected. I hate the word collecting, and not collecting content. Sorry. I differ. I hate the word content. It sounds so pretentious. Anyway, I'm editing a lot of content. Please like and subscribe. I fall through a trapdoor. And I have decided that before I go to the Olympics, I want like all of my like social media pages to like look nice, professional, like organized properly, etc., etc. And I just want to be doing the best practices that I can be doing. One of those things was, I don't know why I got into an ADHD complete blackout black hole. And that black hole that I like fell into was that I was like, I need to create thumbnails for every YouTube video I've ever made. And I did do that for hours. So I'm like, I have so much work, right? Some of that work was kind of put on me. And if you could call spending time on Canva Pro, which I'm paying for, work, that it's work. That's me. You know, that's my work. That's me going out into the fields, working hard on the farm all day, is me like going to Canva, doing like, like remove background on a million different images. I'll say it took hours and hours, but I did it and I'm really happy with it. Looks good. Love it. Can't wait to go viral. I fall through another trapdoor. Anyway, just a huge shout out to the company Canva, who definitely has their shit more together than Tim Cook up in Silicon Valley. Okay. They're not doing updates all the time, willy fucking nilly. But you know, what are you going to do? The other thing about my computer, I'm just going to get it all out there, is when I put things out onto the desktop, like the screen, like the home screen, because sometimes every once in a while, like if I need a file or something, I put it onto the desktop so I can like find it immediately, drag, drop, click, send it in, whatever. But I'll put it onto the desktop. I know this is a setting and I could probably just work this out on my own. Why would I do that? I'd rather complain about it. But every time it goes onto the desktop, without me ever asking, whoop, right to the cloud. Right up to the cloud. Because every once in a while, I'll try to drag that file in and it'll be like, hold on, I need to download first. And I'm like, well, I didn't ask you to go to the cloud. I put you on the desktop so I could get immediate drag and drop access. Drag and drop, as I said. Now, I know it's a setting. I don't have time, okay, to look it up. I have time to be on Canva, but I don't have time to literally just type, Google it. So, you know, that's me in a nutshell. I'd rather complain about it than Google it, because it's, you know, it's sort of the quirk, which is sort of why I do love the external hard drive, because the external hard drive is not, it's a cloud itself, but instead of being like in the cloud, it's like in itself. It is itself a cloud, right? That's why I do love it. If you need a file, it's in it. It's like in the external hard drive. If I need a file, it's on my desktop. Whoop, it's been in the cloud. It's just like, you know, it's a fake thing. It's basically a thumbnail, you might say, which so glad I spent so much time on YouTube thumbnails. That is going to be time well spent. When you see your life flashing before your eyes and they're like, I wish I didn't spend so much time worrying and I wish I spent more time with like my family, they'll interview me and I will go, I wish I spent more time on Canva. I do. I wish I spent even more time on Canva because I love that thing. You can make anything. You can make a menu. You can make a website. You can make a banner for your YouTube channel. You can make an invitation to your wedding. You can make anything on Canva. It is God's greatest tool. His absolute greatest tool. God made us perfect, but he made Canva even more perfect. I would shout that from the rooftops. I'm saying this completely unsponsored, actually in the hole. I'm paying them every month so that I can use some stock images here or there. But I love it. I love Canva. Love it, love it, love it. Let's move on. I would like to talk about something else. And that's something else is this week, Netflix put out a trailer for a brand new show that is going to be premiering February 1st. It's called Glitter and Gold. And it's about figure skating, and they're going to be following 3 ice dance teams in their lead up to the Olympic Games in Milan, Italy. Milan Cortina 2026, only on NBC. And now on Netflix for that documentary, which will not be on NBC. Now, here's the thing. I am in the documentary, not as an ice dancer, as sort of like a narrator, commentator, storyteller. And yeah, that's sort of like the end of that. So I am really excited because I guess I'll tell you a little bit about the background of it without revealing too much. Basically, there's nothing to reveal. I don't know. I've seen like a clip here or there, but I have no idea like when in time they've started filming the skaters. I have an idea, but I'm trying to like save some of that so it's like still a surprise. And I don't know if like they want me to be like, this is when it started, right? Like, I don't know if they want like on the Intrusive Thoughts podcast for me to like leak that. But I will tell you that, I'm a commentator, narrator in the documentary, and I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be amazing. And I just think that it's going to be very interesting to watch these 3 different ice dance teams in their like lead up into the Olympic Games, because there's one thing I like about all of them, and it's that they're all adults. Because as I've gotten older, I actually don't really like watching children. Do you know what I mean? Like, basically, sometimes I'm like, ooh, is the mom pushing them too hard? Or like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can just feel like a little weird or off about that. And but all of these teams, like, they're all in their 30s. And I think that they all have very interesting like background stories, and each of them personally have like very fascinating points of view and where they're coming from. And one of the teams is like right now, I would say quite controversial. So it's just going to be very interesting to see like what the whole documentary looks like. I guess I can tell you a little bit about like what I did and how that worked. So basically, I sat down with the Netflix team, and this is the same team that did the Simone Biles documentary, which if you haven't seen the Simone Biles documentary on Netflix that came out like in the not the Tokyo Times, excuse me, Paris Times, there was another Simone doc that came out in the Tokyo Times where it was like Simone versus herself. Eerie title. But this Paris Olympics Simone doc, it's like the same team that did that, and that Simone doc was like amazing. One Simone Biles is amazing. And also, if you haven't seen my favorite thing right now is like 1, Simone Biles being like, I got fake tits, and 2, I'm taking skating lessons. You know what? Yes, I love everything literally about that. God is so good. He is so good. And Simone's breasts are so nice. They look incredible. And God is good all the time. So it's by the same team, and I actually have known the producer, the director of the documentary for a really long time, because I filmed things with her before, like different skating things with her before, and she's a wonderful lady. It's crazy to call someone a lady, right? She's a wonderful woman. Feels so like, impersonal. But she's fantastic. And I think that she's going to hit the nail on the head with this documentary. So basically how it worked for me was I did 2 a few hours long sit down interviews with the Netflix team. And the first interview I did, I think it was actually pretty unclear who they were even going to be featuring. I don't even know if they had any of the teams picked, actually, when I did my first sit-down interview. And I don't know if I mentioned this. Maybe I did. I did 2 of them, 2 long interviews. And so the first one I did was like a few hours long, and it was basically just, I kind of like wax poetically about the landscape of what ice dance is and the stakes and, you know, that these couples might be facing in an Olympic season and whatever. And obviously when I am talking about it, I am being a complete like gesture idiot. Like I'm doing anything to, like, you know, make people laugh. I'm like Michigan J Frog, like with the top hat, like, you know, I'm doing anything to get a laugh, a rise out of these people. And I got it. I did. I made them all fall in love with me. Which I don't know is true, but I'm going to say it. I'll put that on the record. So that was my first like long sit down interview. And then I did one more, another few hour interview, which was this time I did know who was in the documentary by the time I had done a second interview. And we were pretty late in like the skating season. So this was more of like a what's going on now, where are we now sort of deal. And yeah, I mean, I just think it's going to be really good. I know that like when I was talking about it, I was really trying to like put it in the point of view of somebody who's like never watched skating before. And so that's sort of like, you know, I try to do that when we did our interviews. That being said, it's not about me, even though I'll try to make it about me, but it is about these 3 ice dance teams, and it comes out February 1st. Like I said, I think it's going to be quite fascinating. I think it's going to be very good. I really, really do believe that. I am talking a little bit about, and when I say a little bit, sort of like a lot about like sort of like Olympic stuff, but there's just like a lot of Olympic things like happening. And I think last week I said, let's do like, you know, voicemails and text messages, which I did not get to because I talked myself literally into into oblivion. I disappeared after I was done recording the episode. I hit end and gone. I went to the cloud, like all of the shit on my desktop goes, which it doesn't need to do that, by the way. That being said, let's kind of like, you know, I ask for them. I'll even go as far as say I beg for them. So let's do some voicemails and let's do some text messages and let's kind of get this show on the road to Milan. Let's do our first voicemail.
Please leave your message after the tone.
Hi, Adam. My name is Taylor. I just finished your latest intrusive thoughts, and you did no calls or texts. So hopefully you'll do this one in one of your upcoming episodes. But you asked us to share any intrusive thoughts about the Olympics. And my question is, do you ever feel that bittersweet, almost sadness when you're covering the Olympics or coaching, you're going to them? I used to run, and when I watch the running events and I watch the marathon, I'm so excited. I love to watch it, but I also feel this, I'll say it, I feel a pang of just missing it and feeling like, it's almost like regret. Not that I was ever an Olympian, but I imagine it's even more so when you've been at your level. So just curious how you balance the excitement with kind of the wistfulness of the bygone days. Anyways, keep up the good work. Bye.
So I want to say amazing call out to the not doing the voicemails. I deserved that. I really did. Thank you for the voicemail. I'm processing the question. This is a great question. by the way. And I think I'm going to give a bit of like an unconventional answer to it. First of all, the short answer is no. I don't feel that like longing to be out there again, but it's way more layered than that. And I think like, okay, let's try to like break this down. Okay, let's go back even further. For a really long time, the Olympics was like this boogeyman to me. I tried to make my first Olympic team in 2010. I then tried again in 2014. And I was an alternate to the team in 2010. And then in 2014, I did not make the team. Wasn't even close. And I felt at that time, like in my sport, it is helpful to be younger. In 2014, I was 24 years old, and I felt, and I feel like it's a pretty reasonable response and reaction that I had, that if I had not gone to the Olympics at 24, it was even less likely that I would go to them 4 years later at 28. And so I had this like mourning of like my career in that moment, because it felt like this Olympic dream that I had was just like, it wasn't going to happen. And, you know, that was that. I felt like, did I waste my time? Did I, you know, was I foolish to believe in myself, or, you know, whatever. So basically, like, I want to say to like any athletes who like might be out there or might be listening to this a podcast, if you don't ever make it to the Olympics, that's completely fine. It's the Olympics are, and I want to be clear, the Olympics are amazing. They are amazing. It's an incredible experience, but it's like, it's 2 weeks. Okay. It's a 2-week trip. And it's a 2-week trip to a rink that you probably have competed at before, or a venue you've maybe been to before. Competing against the people who you've competed against your entire life. So it's all the same people. It's all the same places. The only thing that's different is that the Olympic rings are inside the building, and there's, you know, there are more people watching, but it's kind of like any other event you've ever done. The only thing different about it are like the external and outside kind of forces that are also, that come with an Olympic Games. And I think that I just felt like when I didn't make those teams, and especially the 2014 team, I kind of felt like I was like a failure. And I felt all of these things, and I felt bad about myself, and I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And basically I had this amazing conversation with a friend of mine who did go to the Olympics, and she was a gold medalist. And this is like, we had this great conversation. This is like months later. And she was telling me about how like she didn't know what she wanted to do next, and she felt lost, and she felt like kind of out of place when she go to the rink now. And basically all of these things that she was feeling, I was feeling. And so I was like, okay, I would literally do anything to have been an Olympic gold medalist at the 2014 Olympics. And she is, and she's feeling all of the things that I felt, and I didn't even go. And so it was a great like perspective adjustment, which did not happen overnight. You know, it took a minute, but I realized that like not going to the Olympics was I was going to be completely fine. And I would still consider like everything that I had done like a success. But and I actually I feel like I had the best years of my career from like 25 to 28. Like I just got better. And I think I got better because I had that perspective of like, the Olympics isn't end all be all. And if I go, I go. If I don't, it's okay. And so, but I did become a little superstitious of like, you know what? Like I won't own anything with Olympic rings on it. I'm just going to like avoid talking about the Olympics. I don't want to, I know it's not it is a huge thing, but I don't want to make it a big thing. I don't want it to be this thing that it's just like, I would never want to look at my career and be like bitter about not going to the Olympics. I would still be, I want it to be like, if I never had qualified, if I never qualify, like it will be okay. But like now as an athlete, like if it's still like, I continued skating the next few years from 2014 to 2018. With always my eye on the Olympics, but never like my heart set on it. And so that being said, it was sort of like, I avoided things with Olympic rings. I would, if you'd be like kind of in a room, people would be like, oh, they're Olympians. And I'd be with my friends who went to the Olympics, and I would always like correct them that I was not an Olympian. When really nobody gave a shit, but it was just like I was superstitious about it. So the Olympics for maybe like the first 28 years of my life was something that I like actively like avoided. And I avoided thinking about it. I would say when I was younger, I like actively thought about it constantly. And it was like a crippling pressure that I had put myself under that like basically I buckled under when push came to shove. But I feel like my newfound perspective of like it not being everything and kind of focusing on the things that like were really important of like, how did I feel about the way that I was performing and what I was doing? I was really focusing on the right things. And that mindset is what got me to the Olympics. This is a really long-winded way to like talk about like that question, but I think I need to give it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the time, space, and energy to share this story. I hope that you're like still with me. So, where was I? So I think that in that lead up to 2018, the Olympics was something I actively avoided thinking about, and it was just, I enjoyed watching them, the summer games on TV, and all of that stuff. But like, I was actively like pushing the Olympics away because I did not want it to become this like boogeyman thing. When I made the Olympic team in 2018, I remember that one of the first things I did was like, I went on the Team USA website, which anybody can do. And I went to their shop and I ordered like 1 or 2 Nike Dry Fit Olympic Rings t-shirts. And it was like, I can finally wear these Olympic rings. I've earned the right to wear these. The right that like, I'm the only person who said that. There's nobody else in the world who's like, you have to only wear these if that's not true. Okay. It was just like the superstitious thing that I was doing. And from that moment, which is so interesting now, where it's like we're 8 years later, the Olympics is something that's like so part of almost my everyday life. Because I've worked the Tokyo Games, I was at the games in Beijing, I worked the Paris Games, and now I'm going to Milan. So it was this thing that I wondered if I'd ever go to, and now here I am, and this is the 5th Olympic Games. That's shocking. I didn't go to, I worked Paris. I was in Connecticut, in Stamford, Connecticut, which is like the headquarters of NBC. So I worked it from the States, but being involved in the Olympics. So it was just this thing that I like actively kind of avoided. But like, I feel like by the time I made it to the Olympics, I had this like epiphany that I was like a fully realized adult person. I've obviously grown a lot and learned a lot about myself in the last 8 years. Isn't it interesting where sometimes this podcast where like I talk about complete utter nonsense, and now I feel like this is like, you see the duality of me, right? Like I can talk about, begging for slipper suggestions on a podcast not too long ago. Or now I could be giving like a TED talk. And so I hope you don't mind. But let's continue down this road. Sniff. So I feel like by the time I did make that Olympic team, I had like I said, I felt like more of like a fully realized adult. Like I knew who I was, and I also knew that like at 28, and because I had made that Olympic team, that I wanted to kind of take the next step. And the next step would be like retiring as an athlete and pursuing different endeavors. And before I had made that Olympic team, to kind of take the pressure off of myself, I told myself that I would skate like one more season after the Olympics, just as a way to like ease the pressure a little bit. So I wasn't entering every competition going, this is the last one I'll ever do. Because every time I see other athletes do that, I'm like, that just feels like so heavy. And I did not want that heaviness. And so I told myself maybe I would skate one more season, but I imagined that like I knew the time and energy it took to be a good athlete, that I would have to like take that time and energy that I was putting into my sport into whatever I wanted to do next. And I thought maybe it would be coaching full time or doing choreography full time for different skaters. And I didn't know, but I kept an open mind. When I got to the Olympics in 2018, I got a lot of like media attention, and I had this like epiphany. I don't know if I've ever shared this, probably not on the podcast because I'm too busy talking about like Mark Wahlberg being a murderer. But, and I digress. So, I had this epiphany where when I was doing all of this media and I had this like opportunity to like, you know, make people laugh and engage with them. And it's like, I've always loved doing that. I've always been like, kind of like a class clown to like all of my friends and to like that I've been training with and have known for like my entire life. I'm a storyteller, as you know, as Netflix would describe, a narrator. And so I kind of had this like moment of like, while I was doing all of this media and like basically kind of doing like a one-man show anytime I'd have the opportunity to, or anytime like somebody would ask, I had this epiphany of like, oh my God, this is what I've been meaning to do my entire life. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to be like in front of people and to like make people laugh and feel good and comfortable. And it just felt like I had this moment of like, oh my God, like I've been doing this one thing my entire life that like feels like, you know, something like, oh, you're meant to do it. You're at the Olympics. Like, okay. But it was totally, completely something else, where being at the Olympics like opened my eyes to this like whole entertainment side of work that I was like, this is the thing I want to put all of my energy and self into. Like, this is what I want to do. And so what I actually did over the last few years was like, I was like, I want to avoid anything skating related. So after the Olympics, I had already agreed that I would skate on a Stars on Ice tour. And I did that while I was doing Dancing with the Stars. And I had already agreed that I would do it, but I knew that like this would be the last. And I kept saying to myself, like, this is after, literally, this is hilarious, of being like, I'll never say it's the last thing I do. I was on the Stars on Ice tour telling anybody who would listen, being like, I'm never skating in a show again. Because I felt like I needed to say goodbye to this part of me to dive fully into the entertainment world of like, what did I want to be? I don't know. And it was a really hard like learning curve to realize that like in entertainment, like it's not like sports. Because in my sport, like there's a clear objective of like, in 4 years, you want to go to the Olympics, you want to get a medal, right? And in most sports, there's a clear objective of like, I want to go to the Super Bowl, I want to win the Stanley Cup, right? And in entertainment, the like landscape changes so often, and it's not sports, right? There's no first, second place. There are awards, but there's a million different categories and they happen every year. So it's just, the stakes are so much lower. And it just was like, I felt a little lost in it, but I still was like really pushing the skating stuff to the side. And, you know, not that there were like people were knocking on my door to be like, you have to do this tour. Like, I think I was putting out the vibe of like, don't ask, don't tell. And so I just kind of like avoided being involved in skating in too big of a capacity, because I wanted to be like known not as like a skater. I wanted to be known as like an entertainer. And so I avoided it for a really long time. And so back to your voicemail of, do I ever get that like that feeling of I want to be out there again? I feel like in the last few years, I've decided to, because I still love skating. I'm a fan of skate. I was always a fan of skating, and I always loved it. I even loved it when I was competing in it. A lot of people don't feel that way when they're competing in it, but I loved it. I loved watching other people skate. I loved, you know, keeping up with like all of the competitions and everything. And over the last few years, and this is like a huge help too, I think we have some crossover listeners here, but I have another podcast called The Run Through, and it's a figure skating podcast that I started with my friend Ashley Wagner and our friend Sarah Hughes, who we met through NBC Olympics. And the reason that we started this podcast was because Ashley is a very good friend of mine. She's one of my dearest and best friends. And we used to train together in California. And she also retired in 2018. And she decided that when she retired, she was going to move to the East Coast. And so, you know, it's just so easy that like when you're away from your friends, that like time passes and you fall out of touch with them. And it happens so easily. And we were just, you know, we're like, okay, let's schedule calls to like we keep in touch with each other. And it wasn't happening. And Ashley had this idea of like, let's do a skating podcast together. And it'll be this thing that will like, you know, we have to stay committed to it. We have to do it once a week, and it'll be like a call, and it'll be something for us to talk about and stay in touch with. And I was a little like hesitant to do it, but I was like, you know what? Why not? If anything, it's just going to be good to kind of keep the podcast muscle going, right? Like, it's just because it is sort of like a muscle you need to train to like be on the mic. I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm like a first responder of like, this is such a serious job, but it is a skill to be able to like talk and explain and entertain. I should get struck by lightning by the way that I'm talking about myself right now. It's all right, but I'm like, I'll keep the skill sharp. Because, you know, I had even felt like if I was like doing like different media or doing shows and stuff, if I hadn't done one in a while, it felt like it took me a minute to like warm up to feeling like really in a groove of being there and being on camera. And doing the podcast, I was like, this will be a great way to keep that muscle sharp, which I gotta say is amazing. I've never been sharper in my whole fucking life, by the way. And I can do a podcast on my own, right? I can talk myself to sleep. Hopefully I'm not talking you to sleep. Hopefully you're liking and subscribing and giving the podcast 5 stars, please. We love that. But this is like a muscle I've worked on, and I was like, I think that doing the skating podcast once a week, it'll be doing something that's why I'm going to do it, because I went into it being still completely focused on like just the entertainment stuff, and I then slowly kind of felt more comfortable being like in the skating space again, because I will tell you that when you retire, there is this like weird purgatory that you find yourself in where it's like people know you retire, but if you're still around it, it still feels like, oh, are you not retired? Are you like coming back, or like what are you doing here? And that's how it felt to me personally, of like, what am I doing here? And other parts of that are that like people you competed with are still competing, and it can feel very like weird. And I'll tell you that having 8 years between my competitive career and to where I am now, I have enough distance from it where I feel like I've like found my place in that like skating world again. And I felt really out of place in it for a really long time. And I love being in it again. And I'm really glad that I took a big step away from it, because I learned a lot and I have a lot to like share and help the other younger athletes now. And when I still have like aspirations of like doing a lot more like in media. I think I'm good at it. Can I say that? God strike me now. He doesn't. He's going, you are. And I believe him. God is good all the time. So, I still have aspirations of doing a lot of like things in entertainment, but I think one of the things I've learned is like, you don't have to be one or the other, especially not in entertainment. In entertainment, it's helpful to be a jack of all trades. And that was like an athlete mindset that I was just stuck in for so long, that it had to be one thing. Because to be a good athlete, the only thing you can be is a good athlete. You cannot be anything else, because if your attention and energy is in another place, it's not 100% into what you're doing. You have to give 100% to what you're doing when you're an athlete. But as an entertainer, if you don't have, is it insane to say entertainer? It feels like I'm going to be like put on tap shoes. You know what I'm saying? In entertainment, if you aren't doing a little bit of everything, you're going to be behind. You always need to be thinking of like new things, new projects, new this, new that. And I think it's like an upper hand to like also be involved in sports, and in a sport that I did. And I think it'll always be the case. Like some people will be like, oh, are you the skater? And some people will know me from like hosting messiness on MTV. Like it will like, there will always be people who know you from certain things. And I think for a while, I just really didn't want to be known as a skater. And I don't feel like I'm known as a skater now. I feel like I'm known as somebody who skates. That's also a crazy thing to say, because it's the same thing. It's like that clip where it's like, you don't love your job, you have to job your love. If you've ever seen that clip, it's basically it's a clinically insane woman saying something that doesn't make any sense, and she's saying it on a podcast. It's like in a podcast clip, and she says all of this, and the person who's interviewing goes, oh, I love that. I think I've talked about this before, but that's what I just did with the entertainment of it all. I take out a top hat and a cane, and the curtain's closing. I'm bowing. So to go back to it, I think that like I just avoided it for a really long time, and I feel like I'm coming back to it as a different person, and I have my Olympic experience, and I have my athletic experience, but I don't see myself as an athlete. And I think that's the biggest thing of like, I don't think of myself as an athlete. I think of myself as somebody who does work like in Hollywood and in entertainment and like comedy and stuff like that. Like that's how I think of myself. I just have this skating experience. So like when I go back into this skating stuff, I don't feel like, oh, I'm back as a skater. I feel like I'm in it as an entertainer. And I think that like I feel very comfortable in it in that way. So when I watch the skating, it feels like I don't know. I have no desire to go out there and do it. How about that? I love to do it. I don't do it very often. I wish I would do it more. I wish I had more time to do it more. I'm spending so much time on Canva making fucking YouTube thumbnails and like previews for whatever. But yeah, I wish I had more time to go skate, and maybe I would want to perform again, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think the idea of like trying to shove this body into like a tight costume is like, I think it would feel like walking the plank, and I'd be like, I'm going to jump. I'm going to jump. Right. And so I don't have that desire. And I think like I really like when I go to a skating event or like any sort of like athletic competition, I'm coming at it from the point of view of like a journalist, a comedian, an entertainer. That's how I come at it as. So I don't have those feelings of like, God, those were the days. And I think that's why. And I think that's why like this answer is a bit uncontroversial. That's not what I meant. That's why this is a bit of a like what is the fucking word? Fuck. After I just talked about this muscle of my mind, my podcast mind. Well, there you go. Unconventional. There we go. See, I work sometimes the wires get crossed when you got this entertainer's mind. Hello, my darling. Hello, my sweetie. Like, I am sorry for saying that a million times. But yeah, I don't feel like I feel like somebody who used to be an athlete, but I feel like I'm coming at it from now the point of view as like comedian, entertainer, person, human, brother, husband. So yeah, I don't have those like lustful feelings of like getting back out there, and I enjoy it a lot. And I love the capacity of which I like work with sports. And so I don't have any sort of bittersweet feelings about it. And I just think I think it's because I've had distance from it, and I've found my way back to it in a really like organic and beautiful way that I'm really honestly and earnestly grateful for. Because it also gives me like greater appreciation for like what I did, and all of the things that like, all of the time and energy I put into that. But it just feels like an older chapter. And I do feel like, and I felt this like kind of recently in the last like few months that like I'm really stepping into that like next chapter of like whatever I'm doing. So yeah, long story short, and 30 minutes later, sorry, I don't feel that, but I completely understand why you would and why a lot of people do. But I think sometimes instead of feeling like I wish I could get out there, or am I missing out on something, or like sad, I think those feelings are totally normal. Because I've also felt, I'm not saying that I've never felt them. I just don't feel them anymore. And I think it's because I've had more distance from it. And I've had like a lot of time to reflect on it. And I'm really grateful for that former version of me who did all of that stuff. And I really admire all of that, like athletes of today. And I think that also because I've had distance from it, a lot of those young athletes who are like now the top athletes, like they were watching me when they were young. Like I have sometimes every once in a while, like I'll have a skater who like shows me a picture of like me and them. And it's like, it looks like me. And then it looks like me with like a child I stole from the NICU. And they're like, that's me. And I'm like, what year were you born in? And they're like 2005. And I'm like, I pull out a gun and I say, get the fuck out of here with that bullshit, being born in this millennia. But it's just, I have distance from it. And so I feel like they look at me as somebody who's just like older and been through it. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. Now, not that this was like heavy, but this is like sort of like, I'm just telling a story. So let's do a text message. We did a voicemail. I was called out, which I should have been for not doing text and voicemails in the last episode. So let's do one text message so we can kind of cover both bases. And this text message it starts with, I hope you can get photos on this. Okay, I want this listener to know I can get photos and I got it. I'm going to read the rest and then we're going to talk about it. I hope you can get photos on this, but I just can't stop thinking about the uncanny appearance between you and Stingy from Lazy Town. Is there something you're not telling us? It's giving double life. Okay. One, ego check, right? This is like a really humbling text message from a listener I'm getting, because I don't know if anyone who listens to this podcast, Lazy Town is a children's show, okay? And it's a children's show. I don't know if you've like ever seen it, but it's sort of like Muppet-like, where there's like puppets, but there's also like real people. It's like very cartoony. It's very whatever. There is a character on there who, if there was a way for me to send a cease and desist letter to somebody who texts the podcast, it would go to this person, because you need to see a photo of Stingy the fucking puppet. Okay? He looks like Augustus fucking Gloop from Willy fucking Wonka. I'm furious that I'm getting comparisons to Stingy the puppet from Lazy Town. I don't even know. You know what it is? It's the ears. It's the ears, and it's like the brown kind of hair. It better not be fucking anything else with his sad, like low lids, heavy, dark circle eyes, but it's the ears. Because he's got like ears that are kind of like out. And I kind of have like ears that like stick out. I'm not ashamed. I need to hear. Right? What do you want me to do? I'm not going to get ear pinning surgery. I did kind of look into it though at one point in time. I was like, what if I just get my ears pinned back like a fucking bulldog? Right? I didn't do it because I was like, oh, because you can't like lay on your side. And I was like, I'll never get any sleep. I do love that I talked myself out of getting ear pinning surgery. When when I say looking into it, I watched 2 YouTube videos. Okay. It's not like I was calling doctors. It was like I watched 2 YouTube videos and the recovery looked disgusting. So I said, no, I'm going to stick with the big ol' ears I got. But a guy's got to hear. So I'm not ashamed of my ears, and Stingy the puppet shouldn't be afraid of his ears either. I do see what you're saying. I do feel like I do look a little bit like, if you squint your eyes and and you literally get hit in the back of the head with a frying pan and then you like wake up, then I do think I look kind of exactly like Stingy the puppet from Lazy Town. Very humbling to kind of get that comparison. Some people, this is exactly what happens to me all the time. And when I say all the time, it's happened to me a few times in my life, not all the time. But somebody will be like, you look exactly like, and they'll be like, this person. And I'll be like, oh, really? And I'll look it up and it'll be like the missing link. And I'm like, in what world do you think I look like this Neanderthal that when you looked at me, this is the first thing that came to mind? Knuckle dragging Neanderthal. Hey, you kind of look like this person. Excuse me? Go to Lens Crafters. Go to church. Get on your knees and beg God for forgiveness. You're bullying me. But Stingy the puppet, I hear you. I see you. I do hate it. Now, before we end this episode, I want to talk about Lazy Town, and you should look up clips. It's very like larger than life, right? The whole show. there's one character. He's a full-grown human adult who has some sort of like European accent. His name is Sporticus. I remember watching the show younger, being younger, going, I think I have a crush on Sporticus. And I went back and I looked at clips of him today after reading this podcast. And I read the podcast as I read this text message, and I went, oh yeah, that's right. Sporticus is like one of the hottest guys in the world. I think Lazy Town isn't like this universe, but if he is, he's one of the hottest guys in the universe because I don't think he's in this world. He's like built like a truck. Woo-wee. You got to look this guy up. Sporticus. So yeah, I'm not getting any comparisons to Sporticus. It's nice to know I'm getting comparisons to a puppet named Stingy who sings a song about like everything being his. He's a greedy little puppet. So not only that, and he's with a bow. He looks like Pee Wee Herman. Horrible. I need to get hotter immediately. So people are like, you look like Austin Butler. You look like Sporticus from Lazy Town, not the puppet, not the greedy child puppet. Okay. Not the puppet who doesn't know how to share. Well, anyway, that's show business, everyone. If you would like to call or text the podcast, and you should, because we have good fun on here, and I love everybody that does it. I really do. I took a pause there because I stared at a large photo of Stingy the puppet right in front of me. And it took me back. I went, oh my God, am I looking in a mirror? And thank God I'm not, because it's child puppet. It just can't grow a beard. Still has got baby fat. Hasn't slept in years. Anyway, you should call or text the podcast with any intrusive thoughts that you have or anything that you'd like to hear me talk about. And you can do that by calling or texting the podcast hotline at 310-909-7117. You can find that number in my Instagram bio on my link tree. Put it in your phone. Call it whenever you want. And I have so many more to go through, and I promise we will. And I promise I will. When I say we, I mean, listen, it's just me and my dog is sleeping on the floor. So it's just me. And that's it for this episode of Intrusive Thoughts. It was good. It was great. And it was an ego check. It was all three of those things all at once. Everything all at once. And so as we do, I'm Adam Rippon. And these have been my intrusive thoughts.